Welcome to the GAMERamble video review for Leisure Suit Larry, Wet Dreams Don't Dry, narrated by me, Dark Cloud. As always, the full text version of this review can be found on the GAMERamble website linked below. The TLDR is that creating a Leisure Suit Larry in this day and age sounded like a recipe for disaster, but somehow Crazy Bunch managed to not just pull it off, but also did so in style. Wet Dreams Don't Dry is an authentic Larry experience that is filled with corny puns, sexual innuendos, bad pickup lines, and more penis-shaped objects than he can shake a stick at. The world in which Larry finds himself is much more progressive, but he's the same lovable loser who consistently manages to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. If you have fond memories of the original game, can handle some adult humor, or love the point-and-click genre, don't miss out on Wet Dreams Don't Dry. Gameplay receives an 8 out of 10. The game features great puzzles and a rather lengthy adventure. Graphics receives an 8 out of 10. The visuals are detailed and colourful, although the new art style might not be to everyone's liking. Sound receives an 8 out of 10. This new adventure has good music and effects, but the highlight is Jan Robson returning to voice Larry. The overall score for Leisure Suit Larry Wet Dreams Don't Dry is 8 out of 10. And now for the full review. It's hard to believe that it's been over 30 years since the polyester-clad protagonist of Leisure Suit Larry in the land of the lounge lizards burst onto the scene. Few could have predicted the success that he would go on to enjoy, not with the ladies whom he so desperately pursued in his games, but with fans of his adventures. However, after a string of successful games, Larry's star also began to dim, and everything after Love for Sale in 1996 is probably best forgotten. Fans definitely still have a soft spot for the original game though, as it's received 2 remakes, first in 1991 and then again in 2013. However, the chances of a brand new Larry game seemed unlikely after duds like Box Office Bust. That is, until a German team called Crazy Bunch made the startling announcement that they would be responsible for the fate of everyone's favorite loser. Larry's latest adventure is set in modern times, but luckily for everyone involved, it does not take place in the retirement home or feature his irritating nephew, Larry Lovitch. Instead, Larry wakes up in the 21st century without having aged a day since his adventures in the 80s. How exactly this occurred is a mystery that the game isn't very keen on explaining, but it does set things up perfectly for an authentic Larry adventure. Of course, as Larry is from an age where 386 computers were seen state-of-the-art, the modern world is quite a shock to him. Larry has also brought all of his outdated views of the world with him, so instead of trying to make sense of his bizarre situation, he instead gets right back into his old patterns of trying to hook up with as many women as possible. Wet Dreams Don't Dry is set in Larry's old stomping grounds, Los Wages, now called New Los Wages, which means there are some familiar sights, such as good old Lefties. The town has obviously changed a lot during Larry's absence, and now boasts a pier, hipster vegan bar, sex shop, and more. In total, there are more than 30 hand-drawn venues for Larry to explore, and each of them is as colorful as it is detailed. Shortly after stumbling into Lefties, Larry discovers that this day and age everyone is addicted to their phones, and a company called Prune seems to have a monopoly. Prune is of course a thinly veiled jab at Apple, and is run by a man named Bill Jobs, or BJ for short. Larry has an opportunity to meet BJ when he discovers an advanced cell phone complete with artificial intelligence stuck in a pile of goop at Lefties. In the process of returning the phone, which threatens to self-destruct if he doesn't, Larry also falls hard for BJ's assistant Faith. Too bad for Larry, she quickly points out to him that she would never date someone below a specific score on Timber, a parody of Tinder. Undeterred, Larry vows to sign up for Timber and have enough successful dates with other women to accumulate the points needed to impress Faith. Since this is Larry we're talking about, things don't quite work out how he thinks it will, but that's half the fun. Most people associate the Larry games with sex, but while it's typically their primary focus, the early games were actually pretty tame in this regard. Later games obviously ramped up the sexual content, but overall the games never really crossed too many lines. Wet Dreams Don't Dry also follows this path, and leaves a lot to the imagination, but it certainly isn't a prudish game. In fact, this might just be the Larry game with the most puzzles ever based around sex toys and other bizarre objects. One particular puzzle springs to mind that it's just so unlikely that the game even jokingly offers you the opportunity to refund it. The game also doesn't miss an opportunity for Larry to spout some innuendo, or to plaster each scene with a variety of penis-shaped objects. Larry travels around New Las Vegas via Unter taxis, and the story progresses in typical point-and-click adventure style. This means talking to everyone you meet and finding out what you must do for them to get what you want from them. After setting up his Timber profile, Larry can begin dating the ladies he's matched with, and while none of them are quite as memorable as the ones from Larry 6 or 7, they are an interesting bunch. Obviously, it would be impossible to make a game that focuses this much on sex without depicting people of different orientations these days, and Larry actually handles this aspect quite well. Larry encounters a couple of gay characters and even a drag queen, but all of them are incorporated into the story naturally without feeling forced. Poor Larry is obviously way out of his depth regarding the more liberal dating app scene of the modern age, but he still manages to take most of it in his stride. Crazy Bunch had a difficult task on their hands with the depiction of various characters, and we think they pulled it off admirably. There will still be some Larry fans who feel that he's acting out of character, or that the developers are pandering to a more diverse audience, but it still feels like a true Larry game. The game's visual style has also come under much scrutiny by fans because of the more realistic approach taken. Larry himself looks a lot more realistic and in shape compared to how he looked in Love for Sale, but this also fits with how he looked in earlier games. The visuals are very colourful, and each scene is packed with detail. However, although the backgrounds are very detailed, the number of spots you can interact with is minimal. Those looking forward to clicking on every object in sight to hear a humorous voice clip from Larry will be disappointed in this regard. This cuts back on pixel hunting, especially as you can just hold down the spacebar to show all the available hotspots, but it does make the scenes feel a bit emptier. The audio is one area where the game doesn't disappoint, and it sounds exactly like a Leisure Suit Larry game should. In addition to a couple of familiar and very catchy tunes, the sound effects are all crisp and clear. Best of all, Crazy Bunch managed to enlist Ian Robson's talents to voice Larry. Fans of Larry 6 and 7 will immediately recognize his voice, and having Larry sound just like he did in the older games is a big plus for Wet Dreams Don't Dry. The voices of the other characters are also reasonably good, and while none of them stand out as particularly great, they get the job done. One thing that we did notice is that the voice lines don't always match the subtitles, but this is a minor issue. Another annoyance is that many lines are repeated when clicking on items or talking to people, which can grate when you're stuck on a puzzle. Speaking of puzzles, the ones in Wet Dreams Don't Dry are pretty good and logical for the most part. We were rarely stuck for long, although there are a couple of instances when you really have to think outside the box to proceed. Thankfully, none of the puzzles are as illogical or obscure as some other older point-and-click adventures, and you usually have ample clues to point you in the right direction. It is usually also possible to tackle a different puzzle if you're stumped in a particular area. The game does feature a lot of backtracking to solve some puzzles, but the fast travelling via Unter taxis makes this more bearable. Wet Dreams Don't Dry uses a pretty straightforward point-and-click interface. You click on things to interact with them, and right-click to examine them. Holding down the spacebar or the middle mouse button highlights all the hotspots on the screen, and you can access your inventory by pressing the scroll wheel or selecting it from your Pi phone tucked away at the bottom of the screen. This Pi phone can also be used to access the Unter, Timber and Instacrap apps. The only annoyance of this approach is that it's too easy to accidentally close your inventory while scrolling through the items in it. We didn't encounter any bugs while playing the game, although the developers have released a couple of patches to address issues affecting some players. In this day and age, the thought of playing a full-fledged Leisure Suit Larry title seemed highly unlikely, at least in the manner that we've come to know and love the character. However, Crazy Bunch managed to exceed our expectations and delivered a game that is definitely worthy of the title, even without the involvement of the original creator Al Lowe. It may not be the best Larry title in the series, but overall Crazy Bunch did a great job with the source material and created a game that remains true to the character while still making him appealing to a whole new audience. This is quite a feat, and hopefully it's something that he'll be able to pull off again in the future, as this game deserves a sequel. Thanks for joining me for this Leisure Suit Larry Wet Dreams Don't Dry PC review. Remember to like, subscribe and share. Until next time.